I barely got any support. And when I needed support, I would get a hard time. So finally, I just gave up. I had tried to start a robotics club, bought a bunch of robot kits for the kids, the school people refused to put some simple software like the Python language on their computers. So they just became more and more difficult. For the kids really did very well. I mean, they loved the Scratch Club. I was amazed at what they could do. And every year there would be 1 or 2 kids that were far more advanced than I was. They could do things that I couldn't. They also were able to use a lot of this stuff. One of the things I encourage, but I also got pushback from the administration, was to use Scratch for things like making, with the permission of their teachers, presentations in things other than computer science or science. Maybe do a history project where you would use Scratch and bring in pictures and sound. And they seemed to like it, and some of the teachers actually started encouraging it. But at least in my school, it's very difficult. If it's not in the curriculum, and I understand it, they just don't want to deal with it. But they also don't want to deal with it even if they don't have to put any effort or money into it, which is kind of strange. So I don't know if other people are finding the same thing. I think the schools are under such stress at this point that they just don't want to deal with anything outside of what the guidelines say that they need to deal with. But, you know, I guess that's life these days.
Yes, it seems to be a global problem. All the schools are very stressed with a lot of topics and things to study. I've been working with students for so long, and I work with, I follow them with in all subjects, school subjects. And it's impossible for a child, a student, a teenager to learn and to know by heart at least all these topics, because it seems to me that as much the knowledge has grown in these decades, the people that are in charge to decide the syllabus for the children, they want to put everything into it. It's crazy. For instance, I can tell you, I'm a biologist. I have studied molecular biology, so I had to study the molecular parts of a cell, for instance, because I do research, I work with that. And suddenly I saw that a teenager, 16 teenage-year-old, had to learn 7 types of receptors in a cell membrane. 16 years old. What are that, and what is it for? I can imagine why a 16-year-old girl or boy has to learn this. And then we start talking, okay, the membrane, you know, the cell, and then they didn't know what cell is. They have never seen a cell in the microscope, but they have to learn by heart the 7 kinds of proteins they have and how they work. It's crazy. I don't know what these people in schools are thinking about, why they're pushing so much children to know this. And as a matter of fact, they don't know. They just has to learn by heart to do the test, and they forget everything about the day. The worst thing of this is that they start hating school, because they think, why do I have to learn this for? And they start not wanting to learn anything. So even the things that are useful or important for their development, thinking and things they have to learn, they just stop it. They are dropping off of the schools. So I think this is crazy. And I see that as in the whole world. I don't know. What do you think? Hi, Ishui. He's from Taiwan.
Hi,
Good
everyone.
morning. You're welcome.
Hi.
Hello. So I don't know, how is this curriculum at schools, and what I feel is that each time they are putting more and more stuff in the curriculum, and this is not helpful. This is not helping developing good citizens or good thinkers, because they are being pushed to know things by heart. So how to put creativity in this, and how we can discuss learning, programming, learning coding, to learning, and not learning to code. I can just separate, understand this very well. What do you think? Isn't it one more thing to learn, or how to apply this to the curriculum in our days? That's my question. Sorry. Is it too crazy or too difficult to everybody's opinions? Sorry.
It's so many questions, so it's hard to handle. I had a discussion on Facebook with one teacher, I think, and we have put into our curriculum our national plan programming, and she said, oh, you couldn't have Scratch only. You have to have real programming, and she meant text-based programming. And then I couldn't understand what is real programming and what is not real programming. Is coding with text, is it better than coding with block-based Scratch or anything like that? So it's like that in Sweden in these days, because everyone is so scared about in the national plan that says programming, and it's not a huge part, it's only a small part. So I'm not really understanding why is text-based better than block-based programming. I love both. What do you say?
Yeah. I agree with you, Anders. The question is, why are you learning programming? Are you learning to become a programmer? Or are you trying to learn how to be able to sit down and analyze problems and break things down at the small, which you need that for anything that you do. It doesn't matter what you're in. Starting with the block programming, one, it's intuitive. If you see kids when they learn Scratch, I know when I had the club, the first year I did it, I spent the whole summer putting lesson plans together. And the first session, I started going through my first lesson plan, and I can see in their eyes, they couldn't care less about what I was trying to tell them. So I just let them go. And within a week, these kids were doing incredible things. So they learn all of this stuff intuitively. If they're interested and want to become programmers, then to me, the important thing is, I think you have to learn a text programming language, because no one is doing any real programming work with a block language. But if you use the block language, you have all of the basics down. You understand basically what a computer language is. And now you have the flexibility of the text language, and you don't have to, it's just easier to learn. If you go straight to text, you have to learn the concepts and the peculiarities of whatever language you pick. So to me, I agree with Anders. It's not either or. It should be, in my opinion, it should be both. And, you know, there are times where it's just more fun to do the block. And if you can get whatever you need to get accomplished, use it. That's just what I'm thinking.
I want to add to that too. I agree wholeheartedly what you're saying, especially at the elementary level when you're dealing with non-readers, because I like the younger, the better. So you're giving them those foundational, you know, ways of thinking. And that's something that you can't do if you're starting off with, you know, a language like a Java or something like that. You're too busy teaching actually the syntax to it. So it's an entry level. And from there they can move on. But you got to get them thinking in that manner. Get the, like you said, get the concepts, like Alan was saying, you know, the idea of breaking down a big problem to a smaller problem. And from there, and it does spark the interest for some to move on to something a little more complex. So yeah, I mean, that's mostly what I do. I do a little bit with my 5th graders with we're just starting, which is not really coding, but we're just starting HTML just to get the experience of, you know, typing out commands and things of that nature. So yeah, huge with the Scratch.
Okay, I agree with your opinions. I think coding education and programming education has 2 sides. One is the expression of students' ideas, and the other is improving problem solving with programming. So low level or entry level novice use the block programming language like Scratch. Yes, it is very useful for their expressing their ideas. And the other is the improving problem solving, use text coding, for example, Python or JavaScript. It's very useful for real world problem solving. So we can choose what is the purpose for education or for programming education. So we use in elementary school for elementary school students, we use Scratch, and high school students, we use Python in Korea. Yes, it depends on the purpose of educational content or educational purpose.
Someone King, let me ask you something. Do you think you are working with the teachers, making this new plan, general plan for education in your country? So how the teachers are feeling these changes? Are they feeling themselves very overwhelmed? I mean, or it's one more thing to us to do, something else we have to learn, to teach. It is difficult for us. How do you think they feel this change?
Okay, some of Korean people feel the change of educational systems, and they feel then recognize the change is based on computational thinking or computing powers. So they try to learn the coding education or how to teach programming to their student. But many teachers feel these changes exactly, so they afraid of learning a new stream for example, for coding education, for our programming education, but our educational systems is national curriculum system. So we changed the national curriculum system for computing education. So in elementary school, all students can learn the programming and coding with uh, 17 hours for 5th and 6th grade students. So all elementary school teachers can learn how to teach programming to their students. And the secondary school teachers, well, we have the subject for information or informatics. So special informatics teachers can teach how to programming or how to code their expression for expression students' idea for problem solving. So teacher training problem is the important to programming education in Korea. So we will try to make the teacher training course for coding education, for programming educations. In these days, many teacher training course for programming education for K-12. Yes, we will try to their ability to teaching skill or make a learning and teaching strategies. So we will try.
Okay, thank you. Just for those who doesn't know, in his presentation, Sohan King told us that by 2018, next years, all the teachers for fundamental school has to learn to coding, because they are going to teach all the subjects as well as N plus coding, isn't it? By next years, the regular fundamental school teachers has to teach also coding in class. That's the big challenge.
Big challenge. In all elementary school teachers have to teach the coding, but secondary school we have informatics teachers, so they do teach the programming areas, programming education. But elementary school teachers do teach all subjects, so they have to learn how to teach the programming to their students.
Almost same as Japan. Yeah, right. Japan's government decided to teach programming 2020, but elementary school teachers are very busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is very difficult to learn how to teach coding. Of course, many teachers are very very to
open to this new,
to prepare the how to teach the coding. It is very difficult. Yeah, and of course, coding in the text-based and coding and Scratch is also the program. But in elementary school, probably Scratch is the only way to select. I think so. I think. But I'm teaching in the college, so I'm teaching text-based, but elementary school, junior high school, and such a school, Scratch is the best way to teach the coding. And also, Scratch is not only a coding, it's a presentation tool to, so it's good for them, good for the students, I think.
So we can see that this is a global tendency. Maybe we are going to in this way in a couple of years too. And people from Asia seems to be in the front in this way, because they are. We discussed about PISA, this international ranking for schools, worldwide ranking. And we see that countries such China, Taiwan, South Korea, Japan is in the very first places in this ranking. So we have, maybe, I know PISA is not the better things to think about creativity, but they are doing something right because they have developed a lot as country as well, not only in doing tests. So the question is how much important is to develop educational system pushing these aspects and how this can develop a country. So for the people in Europe or America, what can we learn from this ancient people, and what are they doing well that we should learn from them? What do you think?
I think first we have to be willing to learn from them. I don't speak for all Americans, but we tend to think that we know best. So again, there's a lot of pressures here. In the United States, there's no national system. It's all, normally it's by states. And they're floundering around with trying to develop standards. In the few years that I was in the middle school, they went through 2 different standards. On top of that, the teachers' benefits are being cut. So, I mean, there's so many pressures that they are not focusing on really getting the kids taught. They just want to measure supposedly what they learn. Whether they actually know it in the next year or not, who knows, because they don't measure it again. So they just tutor the kids. The kids don't really care. They get through the tests. They teach to the tests. And it's just not a good system. And there's certainly, I mean, I'm sure there are, a lot of people who are looking outside of the states at the academic, at the college level, people who teach teachers. But within the schools, they don't have time to do any of this. And, there's just not the resources at all. And again, since it's state by state, each state is different. And it's a crazy system. I mean, the United States does some things that are a little bit different than other countries. They tried doing a national system, and the states really rejected it. So we are where we are, and here in the States, I'm not sure where we're going with this. What tends to happen is the good students do well, only because they would, in any case, and a bunch of students, and especially in impoverished areas, get left behind, and it's really sad. So I don't, I don't know what the answer is. It would be great if we did share with other countries, but we don't. And this forum is probably the only one that I know of where people share things. Anyway, just my 2 cents.
I was going to speak to that as well. I mean, in the States, it's tied to the funding, the money that funds the public schools. And at least in Delaware, the Common Core is what the concentration's on. That's a set of standards that's supposed to be across, most states are supposed to have adopted. I'm not sure. Alan, maybe I don't know. I think most states have the Common Core, but that doesn't include computer science in that. So my concern has always been how to bring computer science within the classroom when it's something that's not being measured. And if it's not being measured, there is no funding or necessarily administrators that are supporting it, because they're not being measured by what the students are doing. And there's a push now for the coding. It's kind of the trend word, but there's more to computer science than coding. That's my concern, is they'll get behind something, but they'll get behind it in a very what's the word I'm looking for? Not an authentic way of getting behind it. It's just a trend and not necessarily getting to the meat of the subject. And we can teach them the code, but we need to teach them the concepts behind it and also show them how to use that for their creative expression. So that's what I wanted to talk a little bit about, is we all have our restraints, and you hear a lot of people talking about innovation. That's another word that you hear about. But how do we, going outside of the box, but how do we teach within the restraints that we have and bring this creativity in a way that's going to impact our students? And because we can't change some of the restraints that are around us necessarily, but we can work within that box and find a way to bring the creative computing in. And that's what I'm always concentrating on. And that's what I'm trying to find out, how other people are doing that as well. That's something I'd like to maybe for us to discuss too as well. I don't know if that makes any sense, all that.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Well,
go on, Veronica.
I want to tell you, a long time ago in 1984, two engineers from the university, they start a program with children with computers, and they brought computers from the USA to the Technological Museum, but the first reason they want to have with the coding was they want to have self-esteem in the children who are going to be there. They don't need more than they said, if you have self-esteem, you can be whatever you want. That was their philosophy. And I think a lot of teachers in Mexico, we have a rainbow in Mexico, because we have only one minister of education in all the whole country, but we have private schools, very good private schools, public schools with very good public schools, but not all the people, not all the teachers know how to code. Then many years from here, we are trying to tell the teachers, you are the change, you are the person who could change things
if you know more. And this is now is changing in Mexico. We have a lot of courses, we have a lot of workshops, but the worst thing is we have a minister of education who is friend of our president. That's why we can change if you have politics people, educators in the Minister of Education, because we need to change that. In that place, we need people who really knows what they want and what is the history of everybody of the computers in Mexico. We are working in that long time ago, and we are trying to change this kind of politics, giving tablets but not giving programs, and we are trying to do that.
Yes, Veronica, I agree with you. I think this is one problem we have. I think our curriculum is crazy like this because the people in charge of deciding the curriculum of each subject knows nothing about education or pedagogical stuff, so they just put topics and topics and topics, and it's crazy. What we see here is that people are just dropping off the schools. Even people who has money, who can pay for a better school, they are just dropping out the schools. Many times very good colleges, they live at the second or third year. And the sad thing is that they are not happy at all. They are leaving because they don't like, because they believe that college and this kind of education is going to lead them to nowhere. It's not helpful. It's not solving the problems in the world. And they are leaving to be alone and depressed. And we are seeing this each time more here in our country. They just don't like school anymore. Not only poor people, it's a general problem. And the sad thing is that they are hopeless. So I think they go to school since they are 2 or 3 years old and pass all their lives in school, and they are not happy. So it's very important. This I used to ask my students, so you don't like school, what do you want to do? So just if you are not you don't have to go. Do you want to do work with something else? They just don't like. They just don't know what to do. So as you told us, Veronica, if us, not teachers that are the owners of the knowledge, but as people that has lived for more, has studied for more time, I think we have this responsibility of helping to show them the way. And I used to tell to my students, even though the schools are terrible, unfortunately, today we still have to go to school and have a certificate in order to have a voice and make difference in this world. So we are here as educators, as teachers, and so we have this conscience that how important education is and how many problems and fails we have to face and struggle with that. So I'm happy that in Mexico this is already changing. Thank you, Veronica.
We think the meaning of the education is to give the same opportunities to everybody. If you give the opportunities, not this kind of things. If you give this, but empty, is the same. But if you give the opportunities, because I have teaching for a long time. Now I am 20 years retired, 20, and I love to teach. I'm still working because I love to do it. I worked with at the public schools for 30 years, and 20 for myself, teaching teachers, because I love to do that. When I go to the workshops, or when I went to Congress, or when I go to some little towns, and I see the people there and the teachers without nothing doing their work, I'm really enjoy, and I really be happy to be a teacher. Then every day, this Saturday, we have a workshop with some teachers, and the first thing we tried to put the 4 P's: the play, projects, passion, and the peers in that workshop, and it really works. It really works. There were teachers from different levels, from different places, and when we start playing with them, singing and saying hello, dancing and things like that, we became peers. And then we start with robotics, how they could use the robotics and why they could use it, because one of our friends are so smart in that. And this is a really nice workshop, and because you can touch them and say you can do everything if you want to do it. And I think this is the meaning. If you want to do it, you're going to do it. And this is my labor, and that's what I do every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. So, I think we have much things to think. Everybody thinking, brainstorming here. That's good too. So, someone else want to talk something, make some suggestions?
Only I'm going to tell you this Tuesday in the hangout with Mitch Rednick, I told him in Mexico we have 72 native languages, and Yolanda Campos, one of my colleagues, she translate Scratch to 7 native languages years ago, and she sent this to Mitch Resnick, but it doesn't happen nothing. And this Tuesday I told him we have 7 native languages in Scratch, and he said, okay, send it again. And this is the meaning. If you try to change and you give the power to those people who maybe they don't speak in Spanish like us, they speak in their own language, they know they have another language in the code, and code is a language. Thank you.
Okay, so we discussed a lot about this stuff, and I'd like to invite you to. I'd like to ask, as a matter of fact, I would like to ask you, would you like to discuss in the next sessions? I hope Alan could present his work in next session. He has prepared a presentation. Unfortunately, he couldn't present it last week. He has this presentation, and he has something very interesting that he's working on now, an interface for Scratch and Microbit. And please, Alan, talk to us what you're doing and how can you make a presentation next week. And please, I'd like to listen for you all what you'd like to discuss learning in the next 2 sessions too.
Okay, I'm not sure if I have other obligations normally on Saturday, so it's, for me, it's not the best day, at least at this time. I tutor, I'm a literacy volunteer, which means I teach adults who are either illiterate or are learning English as a second language. So I have a student that I meet every Saturday. So from my local time, afternoon, after 12 o'clock noon here, I would say 1 o'clock by the time I get home, I'm available, but that's probably pretty late for a lot of people in other areas. It would be another 3 hours. I might be able to arrange something with the student, but anyway, I'd be happy to. I can give you a quick idea of the kinds of stuff I'm doing. I've written a lot of packages that interface Scratch to these little microcomputers like Arduinos and Raspberry Pis. And one of my users had sent me some email saying, can you do the microbit? As a matter of fact, I can show you what the microbit is. I don't know if you can see it. This is a microbit computer. It's really tiny. You can see here's my hand. But it's got a lot of stuff on it. It has a little display in the middle that is a 5x5 LED matrix. It's got a magnetometer. It's got an accelerometer. It's got a whole bunch of sensors. And let me bring it up on the screen because I have something here.
Ishu is showing his own microbit from Taiwan. You were working with these two, Ishu?
Let me share my screen so you can see figure
Oh,
out
great.
I think that's here. Okay. I'm trying to figure out where I share the screen. I don't see the, is that in, nope.
It should be up left.
Up left. Oh, okay.
The green, I think it's the green, the second one. Maybe you're on a Linux machine, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's just a normal interface. Let's see.
It should be the second one with the green screen and a white arrow.
Oh man, I should know this stuff, but I don't.
When you push your cursor on the left, it appears. The menu appears. Can you see that?
Ah, there we go. Okay, now I see it. So let me
okay.
Now. Share, and let me bring up. Can you see this?
No.
Oh. Let me go back.
Which way? Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce her name. You, Ishue? Maybe. People from Taiwan is doing a lot of stuff with this microbit too. Would you like to show something you could present next week too?
Is the screen shared at this point?
Yes.
Oh, yes,
Yes,
now
we
it's
see.
working.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's working. Thank you.
So let me make this larger so people can see. What I've done is Scratch has this thing called an extension where you can create your own blocks. All of these blocks are blocks that I created using their specification. Unfortunately, like with adding other languages, Scratch is not too receptive about physical computing. And it's been a fight to get them to do anything. And they constantly change things, they break things, they don't document it, and they're impossible to deal with. I had gone to Mitch Resnick also. Something worked for a little while, but I really hate to use him all the time. But anyway, this is for the microbit. So to give you an idea of what's going on is the microbit has a bunch of sensors. So there's something like buttons. And I created a block that says there are two buttons. So button A, if I press button A, and I'll give you a demo showing with the display in a minute. But if I press it, it says it's true. And also here, when I press it, I am pointing. I changed how the cat is pointed. And I have something going on with the LEDs, which I'll show you in a second. So if I press button A, I do this bunch of stuff, and there's something going on with the display. You can tell if the board is tilted. So if I have it in my hand and I tilt it one way or another, I'm moving it towards the left. I'm sorry, wrong way. You can actually have things change, and then you can affect things on the screen. Let me just get out of sharing, and let me run this thing. And let's see. And come on. Am I sharing, or is it still sharing?
No, not sharing.
Okay, do you see me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is hold this up, and if I press the button, the program is rotating an arrow one direction. If I let go, it stops. Press it the other way. And this is all done with those Scratch blocks. So there's no programming on the microbit. It's all done in the Scratch blocks. I have another program that it connects to that interprets the Scratch blocks and sends it to the microbit. So with something like this, the kids really love this. I had another one. There's another board. But by the way, it's really inexpensive. This thing is about $10. And the advantage of using this over something like an Arduinos are great. I love them. Most of my programs have been written for it. But in a classroom, Arduinos are not really all that great because you have to wire things up. You have to make sure that it's wired correctly. So you have a bunch of wires. Give you an idea of what it might look like. I don't have anything wired up here, but you use one of these things, which is called a wireless breadboard, and you plug things in from the Arduino into here, and you put LEDs into the wireless breadboard. You got a bunch of stuff that it's very easy to lose. With something like the microbit, not only is it cheap, but it has everything integrated, so there's nothing to lose. There's another board. It's made by Arduino. It's kind of expensive. It's this thing called the Explorer. And I wrote a program a while back and did a little car race with Scratch. And when I brought it in, this is one of the things that my school administration just did not want to support. Again, wouldn't cost them anything, but it's the way things are there. A bunch of the kids borrowed it and were building their own programs, interacting with the board. So this thing has a joystick on it. It's got a slider, like a volume control kind of thing. It's got LEDs, a buzzer, and a microphone. So the kids were having a great time. And you know, I don't know if you've had the same experience I did when I had the coding clubs. Normally the way I ran them, the first session, I would just introduce them to Scratch, show them what the editor does, and within about 15 minutes, I'd let them go on their own, and you know, they would drive how things went. So normally it would be individual kids. They all learned at different levels. But within 15 minutes, I'd start hearing meows all over the place. They discovered the sound. And it's obvious they love physical computing. And once they saw things like this, they just love it. So it's pretty easy to use. So hopefully the microbit program will be coming out within the next couple of weeks. But I got a whole slew of other ones for the Arduino. Same kind of thing, custom blocks. The Arduinos are rather low level, but you can build your own in the make a block section to make things easier. So like to turn on an LED, in my blocks, you express that in terms of what pin the LED is connected to on the Arduino, and whether you set it to a 1 or a 0. But if you have an elementary school kid, I don't think you really want to sit there and try to explain what a pin is, what a 1 is, and you know what's the difference between 1 and 0. So you can create your own block that says LED on or LED off, and they can use that. It's just easier to do. The other thing also is that one of my programs has now been translated, I think, into 12 languages. The blocks are in 12 languages. And what I'm doing with the microbit, but it's always been a hassle. I didn't do the translations, my users did. And it was kind of difficult to do in terms of technically, you had to go in and modify a bunch of files. With the microbit, I'm trying to make it so it's a little bit easier, that I don't have to get involved and people can just take the code and translate it to their native languages. So that's about, looks like we're getting close to 10, so I don't want to take up any more time.
Oh, that's amazing. I've used the microbit in schools as well, but I saw it was only the offline Scratch.
Yeah, that's one of the problems. See, the problem with the Scratch, Scratch now has 2 different interfaces, specifications. One is offline and one is online. The reason that I'm doing offline was because that was the original one. It actually worked both offline and online, which is the HTTP one. But I also had gotten a lot of my users who would tell me that they don't have good Wi-Fi connections and they needed to use the offline. So I stuck with it. I also did some for the online, which uses a JavaScript interface. And those run on the ScratchX site, scratchx.com, I think it is. Also, the Raspberry Pi, they're using that with the Scratch that they're now supplying with it. ScratchX is a big pain to deal with. One, it's not that it's a difficult interface, but once you get it done, you have to get, if you want it to be on their website, you have to get approval. They just don't support it. They're just not very pleasant about supporting it. If you have questions about it, they don't answer them. You know, it's grad students, and you know, you can't. I understand that too. It's a matter of funding. But ScratchX to me is a disaster. I had tried to explain to them what they should be doing is develop a specification where the kids could build their own things. You know, it doesn't have to be the physical computing to build your own blocks, so that you may want to do you know, something fancy, you know, so some math stuff that you want to do, and you want to have a block to do that, instead of just, you know, with the basic mathematics stuff. So maybe, you know, you have something a little more advanced, and they're just not interested in doing that, which is a shame. But you're correct. This is all in the offline. editor. And one of the problems with the offline editor is now that they do not support Linux. They say they do. Good luck if you try to install it on Linux. It doesn't work. One of the ones they have one on ScratchX for the microbit only works on Macs. I don't know how many schools use Macs. So to me, it just doesn't make sense.
Could you share your code somewhere? Do you have
yeah. It's everything I've done is on GitHub.
Yeah.
All my stuff is open source. I hope it's well commented enough. I do support it. People do ask questions, and I'm very open with it. I don't. I'd love to make money off of this, but it's not something that you can make money off of. I've been doing this for my own enjoyment because it's a lot of fun. I had no intention of doing microbit because I've done enough of the Scratch interfaces. They're not all that pleasant to code up, and but this guy pleaded with me, so I figured for $10 I'll take a look, and it's pretty good. Microbit. I'm very impressed with the microbit because they use to program it. They use two different languages. JavaScript is one, and they have a block language where you can program it, or you can do it in straight JavaScript, or they have Python, which is not block. And what I'm doing is I'm using Python, but it's kind of strange because they have a Python interpreter built in. I have no code on the microbit. It's all from my side. I'm sending commands in Python to it, and it remotely executes those Python commands. I never saw anything like this before, but it works pretty well.
Excuse me, may I say something?
Sure.
My name is Yixue. It's from Taiwan. I think Alan is in my heart is a god. For I built a transformer for your S2A to build it, and now I have a building for microbit for Scratch sensing. So I seem very happy for this idea. I say maybe I really want to add for your Facebook friend. Sorry.
No problem. Yeah, and my code is all online. If you're familiar with GitHub, if you look for on Google, if you go to search, put GITHUB. Actually, if you want, I can go to the site if people want to see it. I don't know if you want me to take up time doing that. You can see where my stuff is, or if you send me an email, I'll be happy to just send you a link instead of taking up everybody's time.
You could put the link into the chat.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, that would be great.
If I can, where's the chat?
Then my weekend is complete. I have to look into it.
Okay, so now I'm not.
It's the first one on the line, in the left.
In the left, the first one.
Yes, the blue one, above the screen share icon.
It says Facebook Messenger. No.
Nope.
Personal news, history, speed dial. Oh, wait a second. I don't have. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, I got it back. Okay. Let me just make sure I get the right address.
I think the best is when we can see young people working with you. This is so nice for us. How can we share our experience, the experience of the people like our ages with the youngest?
So I just shared the link in the chat. That's to my base area in GitHub, and there are a whole bunch of things. The ones for Arduino that I would look at is, let me type it out also. There's S2A FM, and S2AIO. Those are the names of the repositories. So if you look for those, all the code is there, including the specifications for creating the blocks. So everything you need is there. S2AIO is a little easier. If you install it, you can install, and I'm getting technical here. If you're not familiar with Python, there's a way to install Python programs with something called pip. It's an installing program, and you can install S2AIO with pip, and then once it's installed, all you have to do is type from a command line S2AIO. It'll open up Scratch automatically, load the blocks, and it's pretty easy to use. And that has, I think that's in 7 languages. But if you look at anything and it's confusing, some of my documentation I think can be improved. It's the thing that I hate to do the most is documentation. But again, just send me an email. My email is on the GitHub page. It's a little hard to find. It's on the left side, but you can find my email there, and just send me an email, and I'll be happy to respond.
Okay. That's great. Thank you, Alan. That's what this community is for. It's for putting together very good people and trying to learning from each other. And it's very, very great. So I think we should go on in next week. Maybe if you can on Saturday, maybe Friday, or which time is better for you, Alan? I don't know.
Fridays, Fridays I'm always available. Saturdays
it's more difficult for you. Okay, let's manage this. We could make a presentation. I hope you can join us next Friday.
Yeah.
And so I think we can finish well on time. I'd like to thank you very much. And if someone wants to make any talk something else, please go on.
Excuse me, I share for our beautiful transformer is from your S2A. It's have a link for the message you can download it, and it's for free. Yeah.
What is that?
That's time that we have looking for our built the transformer. Yeah, that is the download link. The transformer is from Alan's S2A.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm very happy. Thanks for Alan.
Thank you. I just tried your link. It says I need permissions to get in. I'll request it, and hopefully I'll take a look.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Ishe, you have to allow him to enter. Is this it's not open?
Not open.
Your link.
Okay, sorry. I look for. How about now?
Alan, see if it works now, please.
Yeah, I can get to it now.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Eden.
Yeah, it's been kind of interesting. I did this for myself. I never intended to really, I never thought anybody would be interested. And I had published it back in 2013. I started working on this. And much to my surprise, a lot of people started downloading and started participating, which was very nice, and that they did the translations. So it's interesting. The world community is really something.
Yes. It was interesting. One time we had a session with the people from Taiwan, Friends of Israel, and they showed us their screen. And then I saw Mr. by Slab. So, oh, I know this. So they didn't know that I know, but it was interesting. You are famous in the other side of the world. You are hit there. Okay, guys. Thank you very much. Anders, Veronica, so and Kim, would you like to say something? Oh, Miguelito. Okay, so see you next time. Thank you very much. See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Jimmy. Good night.
See you.